So welcome everyone. I sure wish we could hug each other's necks and see each other in person. Hello everyone. I suppose we should go ahead and start. I'm conscious of time and there are a lot of folks in here. And I'm really grateful to be able to present, though I do wish we were in person. My name is Cheri Lindle. You may see my name as Cheryl in a lot of places. So I've been coming to ThyCa and involved with ThyCa since 1999, even though I don't, so I started with Glennis Garden. So some of you may be familiar with that AOL chat room from many moons ago. And it was when I was desperately seeking help for my stepfather, who was diagnosed in September of 1997 with anaplastic thyroid cancer. So in 1997, it's very different than it is now. He passed away in April of 1998, and I've been involved with ThyCa ever since. So what happened was we started a very informal anaplastic email support group, me and another gentleman whose father had anaplastic back in 1998 while we were frantically searching for help. And we had our own address book of people. So over the years, we grew in our little email support group. And we ultimately folded in to ThyCa. So we went from about 12 participants to over 900 in our anaplastic email support group. Now, Facebook has been one where I think it has really kind of taken over. It feels more real time than, of course, an email support group. But that was my beginnings. I have volunteered since my stepfather passed away. I felt it was important to give back. There hasn't been any thyroid cancer in my immediate family. But my stepfather was like a knight in shining armor to our family. And part of my story and our work here today really is about the way my parents communicated, both with each other and with their medical team. So though I don't want to tell a story, I want to give us some tools, and I want to offer you up some time to talk about your story as well. And I failed to say this is being recorded, but only for a little bit. And when we all begin to talk, we're going to stop the recording. So please know that. So your privacy and confidentiality, all of that. We're just not going to record when we begin to converse with each other. We do have volunteers, professionals watching the chat room. So don't hesitate to say things there or ask questions there because they will monitor that. And I think that Micah will make sure we all know this and blurt it out for us to know. So I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've attended about maybe 16 conferences. So I'll stop there. My background is in communication. So I have a master's in education. I teach at a community college, but most of my work has been around emotional intelligence and about communication styles. So that's a bit of what we're going to go over today too, because we all have some innate traits. We were born with certain communication styles and certain ways in how we interact and view the world. And we also have some preferred behavioral styles. So we'll talk about that. So my stepdad, Bob, and Bob's story is on the ATC, not ATC site, but on ThyCa.org, you'll find Bob Collins' story. He was someone who was very direct and straightforward and didn't beat around the bush, and he didn't want you to either. So his medical team, he wanted to be direct and straightforward. And any of those that were kind of squishy or emotional, he really wanted you to get through that and get right to the bottom line. My mom needed you to be soft and gentle and do not tell us things like go home and get your affairs in order at all. In fact, she was ready to fire any doctor on the medical team who said things like that. And for the record, I'm that way too. I think there's a different way to say certain things, especially when you're facing the possibility of a terminal cancer. For those of you who know about anaplastic, and my guess is if you're in this session, you're at ThyCa conference, you probably know. So of course, all we read about was horrible things, right? And for those of you who are in here with any of that, know that that story has changed. The narrative's changed around anaplastic. But you know, through their journey, there was a lot of strife about that between the doctors and my mom, who was very outgoing, and Bob, who got very upset if my mom tried to stop those doctors who were being direct and telling him to go home and get his affairs in order. So, so this is also me. So I forget where I placed things. I should have done that part. These are my grandchildren. This is my life. This is what's taken me away from ThyCa. So that's Paisley, Kate, and Grayson. And part of the reason I couldn't attend as much as I wanted this weekend. So I want to say this around values and stuff. Our behavioral styles is about values for all of us. It's about what we value and not only how we communicate, but how the other person, like how you communicate. So if you communicate to me in a certain way that's not my value, it's really hard for me to hear you, and I create a judgment. So we make up things about people that we don't know. We do that just in general. We make things up. And the values that we grew up with. So my mom was very much emotional. My stepdad, I only grew up with him since I was a junior in high school and on. But so you see some examples on this slide. Some people feel they have to be strong and protect their families and friends. Raise your hand, like just with your, if you can see where that, what's it called, your little icon, if in fact you're one of those folks. You have to be strong and protect your friends and families about some of that truth. Yeah. So I see there are many hands there. How many of you seek support and turn to loved ones or other cancer survivors? You need to connect. You need to talk. You need to be out loud about what's going on, and you want folks to support you. Yeah, lots of hands. How many of you ask for help from counselors or other professionals? Like you're that outgoing seeker for assistance. Because what I know to be true, and you do too, some people have a really hard time asking for help. In fact, raise your hand if you have a hard time asking for help. Yeah, some hands went down, yeah, and some new hands came up. And some people turn to their faith to help them cope and communicate. And you can raise your hand there as well. Those are all just, you know, mechanisms for who we are and how we communicate. We come from our values about that stuff. So I want to start first with, I want to move this little line here, with conflict styles, because we all have conflict styles. Like that's another thing. Not only were we born with certain styles, but we were raised observing certain styles. So many of us in our families, if we saw conflict, we were like, I am going to avoid conflict at all styles because this is what it looks like. I am an avoider because conflict in my home was not good. So as in my developmental years, as a young person, like, you know, kindergarten, little bitty, growing up, violence, just kind of some of that ugly conflict, that was my reality. So look at these conflict handling modes. All of us in this room are one of those, potentially primarily at any given time. So I'm an avoider, and look at what it looks like. It looks uncooperative and unassertive. So there's so much different kinds of conflict where we change our styles. So for instance, yeah, so my slide's not changing. Okay, hello, let's see. Anybody ever had that problem? There we go. So my way or the highway is competing. Have you ever had conflict with those kind of people? Raise your hand. My way or the highway in a conflict? Yeah. So then there's compromising. Let's make a deal. If I do this, you'll do this. Okay, will that work? So if you're a compromiser, do that. Raise your hand. Like, yep, that's me. I'll compromise. Yeah. So I see hands. So here's an ideal one. 2 heads are better than 1. Let's just collaborate. Let's listen deeply. Let's find common ground. That's the collaborator. And then there's this one. Think about it tomorrow. Yeah, right now I'm going to be avoiding it. Yeah. So my stepdad was an avoider. I'll think about it tomorrow because he just really wasn't into any of the emotional exchanges. Accommodating, who's that? I'm pretty close to that as well. Hey, it would be my pleasure. I'll acquiesce. Raise your hand if you're an accommodator. Yeah. So many of us can really identify your styles. But look at the 2 straight lines. One has to do with cooperativeness and one has to do with assertiveness. So who in here kind of sees yourself as quite, yeah, thanks, Tony, as quite unassertive? Anyone see yourself as, I'm really not an assertive person, right? And if you don't think that, what do other people think of you? Do they think you're unassertive, but you think you're assertive, or the other way around? And the same with accommodating. See, I do think that we all see ourselves one way, and occasionally consider that other people see us different. So it's something to always kind of keep in mind. I know you know there's a million styles out there. And to effectively communicate, we've got to realize they're all different and they're all right. You know, when it comes to styles, now that's going to be different than those behavior communication traits we were born with. How many of you said things that you wish you could take back? So I know that I am, me too, you guys. I know that I'm talking about kind of interpersonal relationships. I also know there's medical team and then there's patient. And always keep in mind we're powerless over others, right? We're the only ones we can change. We're the only ones that can do something different. We have no power control over the way our medical team communicates. We do have control over explaining who we are and how we can hear things. So, you know, there's these instruments out there that help us know what our personality types are. So this would be like, and if you want to do this, draw 4 lines and put EISNTFJP down. If you want to do this, it's like this really small way of assessing what your personality type is. And we take those types into the doctor's office. We carry them with us. We carry them with us to our children's teachers meetings. We carry them with us to our dinner table. We just carry those traits with us. So EI is how we get our energy. So it is about how we recharge our batteries. SN is about how we take in incoming information. Someone likes details, someone else likes big picture, okay? TF is about how we make decisions. Feelers, which is an F, they make decisions based on emotion and values. T's, thinkers, make decision on logic and facts. JP is my, the one I most enjoy understanding in others. P's are people who probably would never say everything has its place and there's a place for everything. J's, that's their mantra. So if in your home or in your closet, you are, everything has its place and there is a place for everything. Yeah, raise your hand there. So for you to better understand, this is the introvert extrovert. So, and I'm happy to get this PowerPoint to any of you, but I think, yes, did you have a question? Everyone's muted, so you probably already know that. And maybe you didn't have a question. I just saw your hand go up and it could have been to me saying something. Yeah. So it's okay for you guys to raise your hand if you have any questions, because I really would like you to weigh in on some of this. I know there's people in the room right now that is saying, well, it depends. I'm an extrovert sometimes, I'm an introvert other times. And as you notice, those were lines, so it's a continuum. Some of us can be right smack in the middle all the way down. Absolutely. In times of stress though, you may see one trait surface stronger than another. So introverts might also show up as an extrovert sometime, but if you're an extreme introvert, you know it. And this is kind of what happens, right? They're like, would you stop hugging me already? Go ahead, raise your hand if you're that. So let me go to the second one. Yep, I see some hands. The second one, so this is that line, you're placed anywhere in the middle. And sensors are folks who see details, intuitors see the big picture. So sensors go step by step. Imagine that in your medical team communication. So how you hear information is also your preference for hearing information. If your doctor is an intuitor, they may be jumping all over the place and you're like, you need to put that in sequential order for me. So note that who you are when you go into those offices, be conscious of whether or not what you're needing is not how it's being communicated. And it's always okay then to ask for information in a different way. Okay, because this how you take in information is you're born with some of that stuff. Sensors want concrete. My stepdad was concrete. My mom was a dreamer. Intuitors are dreamers, and they trust inspiration. So then there's that, how you make decisions. Thinkers and feelers. You can put yourself anywhere on that line. I am an off the scale feeler. Any of you who are off the scale and how you make decisions, you've paid a price. Any extremes pay a price. So it's important to train other parts of us that hasn't served us well. But we were born that way and we were influenced by our families, by our educators, our culture, all of that stuff. My stepfather was an extreme thinker, very extreme thinker. And my mom probably somewhere in the middle of the feeling section. But this is the one that hurts us the most, right? I have had to learn how to be direct. It serves me well. So those of you who are extreme one way, now's the time about practicing other ways of communicating, even though it won't feel right. In fact, one of the exercises that happens on in these kinds of trainings, if we were in person, probably we could do it now, but is to take a pen in your non-dominant side and write your name in cursive. So if you were to do that, go ahead, if you did that, and type some words into chat as to what that felt like. Because that feeling is the same of practicing other modes of communicating that is not your natural type. So I don't know if any of you have put words there. It is Myers-Briggs. It does, yeah, it is Myers-Briggs. Yeah. So weird. Yeah, it's weird to do it with your non-dominant hand. for sure. It's uncomfortable, it's awkward, it's all those things. So the last one, how many of you, when it comes to your closet, separate your shirts from your pants? Raise your hand. You separate shirts from pants in your closet, right? How many of you are just glad things land in your closet? Yeah. Yeah. So our closets tell us information about ourselves and about our partners and about it actually, since we can't see our doctor's closets, and probably their offices are not indicative of who they are. It's indicative of who's in charge of the space. Because this JP little thing is really about not only structure, like in your life, it's structure in your home, it's structure in your refrigerator. How many of you have to have cans of food facing a certain direction? Oop, some hands came up that weren't up. How many of you don't care which way your cans face? Yeah. So all this stuff really just kind of tells us about the role it plays in what we value. So like the JPs, J's are like, I made a schedule for every day of vacation. I also have an Excel spreadsheet. And perceivers are like, what the, know what I mean? Yeah, perceivers, they're like, no, we don't need a schedule. Yeah. So here's another illustration about judging and perceiving. My stepdad wanted it to go from point A to point B. All right, you give me the bottom line. Perceivers would say, hey, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of inspiration out there. There's a lot of other ways to say that. So we're kind of all over the place. There's no right or wrong to this. That's what we need to understand, because we get mad at people who are not like us because we think our way is the right way and our way isn't. We were just born with certain styles or certain types. Okay, so I'm using language here. I'm mixing them because style is a choice, right? A while ago, I put a slide up that said all behavior is choice. Now, I've had people say to me, that's not true. All behavior is not choice. And I asked this gentleman, now this wasn't a cancer group, but they were oil rig, they were drillers offshore, mostly men. And a man said to me, Cheri, all behavior is not choice. And I said, can you make someone hit you? And he's like, no, can someone make you hit them? That's how I said it. Can someone make you hit them? And he's like, absolutely. I said, okay. So tell me about that. And he basically said, if he's talking about my mom, yeah, it's his fault I hit him. Right. So all behavior is choice. We just have to train ourselves. Yes, question.
Sorry,
Okay.
there is a question. I just was muted. I'm sorry. We have a question. I'm curious why it's called judgers and perceivers, if it seems like it's more about organization and structure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm curious too. And I don't like those words. I typically say this and didn't this time. Judgers don't mean judgmental, and perceivers doesn't necessarily mean perceptive. The makers of the instrument, it was actually made by two women, a mother and a daughter, and it's based on Carl Jung's work. And so judgment and judgers was really about judging that there's a right way and a wrong way when it comes to structure. Like the right way is shirts need to be separated from your pants. The right way is short sleeve need to be separated from long sleeve. So judging about the right way for structure. And perceivers are like wing it people. I don't know why it's named J and P. And I agree with you. I think there could be another way. And here's what's true. If you go searching personality styles, there are different words that describe the same exact types of personalities. So no really good answer to that. Yes, and please, Micah, jump in at any time because I am missing any chats. There's also behavioral styles around what's called DISC. DISC says there's 4 styles of communicating, and we've got to get good at all 4 because these are values as well. I think they blend with type. You can guess right here, looking at this, what style your partner is, your children are, your doctor is. So if anyone wants to jump in here, we can turn the recording off now if you'd like to, because I would ask folks, when you think of your medical team, what would you put as their number one, probably behavioral style when you look at these 4 words?